So anyway, after I got married to him, of course, you start to see things a lot differently. One of the things I really started to look at was the older gentleman that I confided in and felt like he was a trusty person. I started to look at him differently. What I caught him doing one Sunday was doing the very same thing he would do to me. Other women, younger women in the church, were going to him and confiding in him. And then he was then betraying their trust and sharing their information with other prospective males within the church. And I went up to him and I confronted him and I said, "You're violating their trust. That's wrong. You should let the guys do the work to get to know the woman. You should not be disclosing their information and sharing it with these men." I said, because now I've married somebody that really isn't who he showed himself to be to you or to me, and I'm stuck with him. And he was very defensive. He had a rotten attitude. And from that point on, whenever he saw me at church, he looked at me as though I was an enemy. And he gave me very evil looks whenever he saw me. So this is just a warning for young women. Be careful who you talk to, because sometimes the person you think you can trust, you can't. So here we are in part 3. I married my stalker. So full disclosure, this person was already a stalker. And at the time, I had never met somebody I had never been stalked before. Like I said, I was very young. By the time we got married, I was 22 years old. So it just tells you how young I was. But I had never, ever come in contact with someone who just vehemently stalked women, pursued women, broke into your house, just did all those kind of things. I'd never met anybody like that. So I really, again, didn't know what the signs were for someone being a stalker. But one of the things he had confided in me was he had an ex-girlfriend that was dying from cancer, and she was in the hospital, and her family did not like him, and they forbid him to be able to come up to the hospital and see her, and they did not want him around her. Well, he would sneak and see her anyway, and he would go up to her room all the time. And at the time, I just thought he just really loved her, and he just wanted to say his last goodbyes before she died from cancer. But I see now that he was stalking her, and she was in a vulnerable state. She was in the hospital, and there he was. She was unable to move or get away from him. And he went up there as often as he wanted, and he bypassed security or whatever measures they had in place, okay? So he was already a stalker. As I said, by this point, we had our first child, and I had this issue where, for whatever reason, I was always getting crank calls while he was at work. And I was always having an issue with men coming by the house, banging on the doors, and just doing stuff that would just really scare me as a new mom. I was scared to be home alone, just would scare me. I look back now, even then he was tired of being married to me, and he wanted me dead. He wanted someone to murder me. But the guys he would send, I think they just couldn't build up the confidence to actually murder me, but they would intimidate me. And the other thing is, I never opened the door for them. I mean, that was the other thing. There was no way I was gonna open the door and let somebody in and take my life. So that was one. The other thing was, there was a young woman at our church. She just started coming to our church, and she was a young Christian, and she showed up one Sunday, and she was scared out of her mind. She was just hysterical. Her eyes were just wild. She was very beautiful. She was just not herself. And she was, as soon as she saw him, you would have thought she had saw like a wild animal. She just was shivering, and all the older women came around her and they said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And he immediately went to try to muffle her mouth, and they pushed his hand away and said, "No, get away from her. Don't you dare try to silence her. Get away, get away." And he kind of smirked and he walked off. But I stayed because I wanted to hear what was wrong with her and why was she looking at my husband like he had done something to her. And she said to them that he was stalking her, that he was following her up to her job, that he had come to her house at different points in times, and she was terrified. She was absolutely terrified of him. And so the women tried to do whatever they could to comfort her. It was brought before our minister about the situation, and he did address him about it. But what my husband at the time said was that he was simply trying to handle church business, and he meant no harm. And so they said to him that he acted inappropriately and to stay away from her and to leave her alone because clearly she was under a huge amount of duress. I look back now, he fooled all of us. He was clearly stalking this poor woman, and she was absolutely terrified of him. She did end up moving out of state, but I'll tell you, that didn't save her. Stay tuned for part 4. I married my stalker.